Hello everyone. Good evening everyone. I'm Ritika and I'm thrilled to welcome you all to today's session on crafting B2B sales success from quick wins to major deals. We have an exceptional line of industry leaders with us today who have mastered the art of scaling B2B sales from landing quick wins to closing major enterprise deals. Their combined experience spans decades of successful business transformation and growth strategies. Before we dive into rich insights which our speakers will going to share today, I want to thank you each one of you for taking your time to join us. So without wasting any time, let me introduce to one of our distinguished panel of experts for today's session, Vishwendra Verma, who is also the founder and CEO of Growth Sutra.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much for welcoming and welcoming me here. I'd like to mention that this is the first session of 2025, and I'm really excited to see the panel of experts that we have today. Ritika, do you want to also talk about some hospitality, some logistics for our session?
Sure. So before we start our session, would request all the participants to please mention their name and their location in the comment section. Also, we are also going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have any queries for our speakers, you can write them in the comment section and we'll address them as soon as possible. Also, if you want to watch our past session, you can visit our YouTube channel. We have all the videos of our session uploaded over there.
Thank you, Ritika. Thank you so much. So, in this session, we will be taking a deep dive into a critical question for every sales leader, CEO, and growth strategist. How do you craft B2B sales success by balancing small wins and long-term deals? You might have heard about Pareto principle that has been used very often in the IT industry. 20% of the customers contribute to 80% of the revenue. And these 20% are most likely large transformation deals that are counted for. But here's the question: can they afford to ignore the other 80%? Those small, quick turnaround deals? And the answer would be no, they cannot. So both the deals, whether it's a quick win or a transformation deals, are vital, but they require different approaches, mindset, and strategies. And that's what we are going to have a deep dive on in today's session. So let me invite Dennis to join the session and set the context.
Thank you very much. Oh, hi, Vish. Very nice. Thank you very much for today. Thank you, Ritika, for our beginning. I'm delighted. This is a very fascinating subject, and I've gotten to know some of the newer panel members today, and I'm very interested in what's going to be discussed today. So just very quickly in context, for crafting B2B sales success, there are such things as quick wins, and there are other things like major deals. And just to put a context around it, let me put it this way. Are we talking about quick wins or major deals? So is your business looking for smaller opportunities and or major opportunities, both? Maybe some of these are pursued, as they come about opportunistically, and some of these types may be the primary strategy of the company. So is it a quick win or a major deal that your company may be going after, or is it quick wins and major deals? That defines a different way of operating, or do you care which one you get? If either are as acceptable to you. And to give that just a little context, in my opinion, the quick wins take a lot less time, and maybe that's self-evident, and they take a lot less money in order to bring them to closure, and they're typically much less complicated. And because all those things are true, there's a lot more competitors. And yet, in my opinion, the odds are much better that it's going to work out. The major deals take a lot more time, could be 10 times as much. Typically, there's a lot more money involved. They're way more complicated, and there's fewer competitors. But the odds are actually worse, not only because you could lose to the other guy, but if they take so long, the customer themselves may in fact pull the rug out on the whole project and not even go forward with it. So I just wanted to bring these kind of definitional concepts to the front. And that also suggests you could be going after a quick win and a major deal at the same institution. Anyway, that was it, Vish. I just wanted to set that context. Back to you.
Thank you, Dennis. So while I was getting the news which have been there for on the recent earnings season, and I was looking at some interesting insights. So one is, of course, the IT firms see surge in smaller deals amid short-term ROI focus. So there's almost like a double-digit growth that's happening in the smaller deals, and it's across all the large IT companies, whether it's TCS, Infosys, HCL Tech, Wipro, and then even the IT outsourcing trend shift to shorter contracts, which is actually dominated amid fast evolving technology, and we all know what that technology is the AI. So while the buyers are kind of testing out the AI in their ecosystem, but they are slow. They are kind of taking incremental steps to kind of test out the fast evolving technology, and that's the reason they are building these shorter contracts. Apart from that, I've also looked at some stats from ISG, which ISG did a report on IT and business service industry implication for 2025. And they did highlight that large deal activity will continue to be strong in 2025. And apart from that, cost optimization and transformation are making the deals longer, which has been a case, historically. But obviously, these are the two. Most of the large deals and transformational deals are usually have a longer sales cycle. There's another interesting insight, which is Shopify, which was actually focusing on small and mid-sized companies, now focusing on bigger clients for steadier profits. So, if what you shared, Dennis, and what we see in the industry, I think that resonates with the session theme that we have today. And let me now invite the other speakers that we have, as they bring in a lot of rich experience from their world, and they could share a lot of great insights with all of us today. So I have Nelson, Manish, Aditi, and Dean. It's a pleasure to have all of you today. Would you like to share a brief profile about yourself and any specific insights in terms of your learnings, or what does that stick with you in terms of a small sales wins, quick wins, or larger transformation deals? Nelson, maybe we can begin with you.
Sure, Wish. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone on this very exciting session. I think this is going to be yet one more of our favorites, because this is a subject that is very, very close to the heart. There are lots of misconceptions, there are a lot of myths around small deals vis-a-vis large deals or major deals, lots of conflicting commentary around public sector versus private sector, and it's going to be fun to see how this entire conversation shapes up with this fantastic panel. I'm very happy to be here, Vish, and looking forward to add value through this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. Dean?
Hey, good morning. Dean Dean Nolly, Sales Growth Imagination. The world I'm in, generally I'm having SMB customers come to me with a lot of broken sales process or people challenges. And in a lot of cases, it never really existed. So, you can't say that's broken if it wasn't there. But, we're going to also talk about how to take that to, sustainable, then scalable. We're going to show you some things with customer driven data around sales playbooks. But I think most importantly, there's some easy fixes on the sales process that can make a huge impact on, short term and these small wins. So we're going to kind of dive into that a little more. But, again, I think it starts with making sure that you have a repeatable and predictable approach to the market with your product service, as well as making sure you understand your sweet spot of where you have the best opportunity to get those quick wins as how you stack up to your competitors' products and services. So good morning, or I guess good evening to a big part of our audience as well.
Thank you, Dean. Aditi?
Thank you, Vishwendra, for having me. In addition to what Dean said, I think one surprising insight is that a small win can often open doors to larger opportunities, but only if you position it right. For example, in like a small project, we proved ROI earlier by solving one critical pain point. That small success turned into a case study we used to secure buy-in for a much larger transformative initiative. And the lesson that came out of it was that even small wins should be leveraged, very strategically, as they hold the potential to pave the way for a long-term impact. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Aditi. Manish?
Yeah, good evening to everybody in India, and good morning and good afternoon to people joining in from different parts of the world. Excited to be here with such a esteemed set of colleagues and panelists who all bring in such rich experience. I just closed 25 years of my selling and business leadership experience last year. So I think if somebody asks me what is the one big takeaway, especially on the topic that we are talking about, is I believe there is a time and place for both the quick wins and major deals, and the whole, I think the leadership is, and the whole key point is, when are you optimizing for what? And that could depend upon the stage where you are as an organization. Are you looking for big growth, quick momentum? And that also depends a lot on the clients and the market. So I'm sure we are going to dive in a lot of that areas during our discussion. So excited to be here, and would love to contribute and learn from others also.
Thank you. Thank you, Manish. So before we begin, let me also go through the flow that we have for today. While we set the context, me and Dennis, we would have voice of leaders, wherein we are going to look at real world insights on B2B tech SaaS sales deals. And Aditi would be talking about accelerating sales in government public sector. Then we are going to have Manish, who will cover closing deals in private sector. Then we are going to have segment on voice of experts, wherein it will be where we are going to have a discussion on myths, realities, and priorities, especially when we are looking at how to balance, quick wins with large transformation deals. So here, in fact, Nelson, Dean, and Dennis would be actively sharing their insights with all of us, and with Aditi and Manish joining us too. And then we are going to have voice of leaders segment again, which is going to be challenging the panel. So in this voice of leaders, of course, we have Aditi and Manish, whom you see here, but we are also being joined by Rohit, who is the head of business and product development at Cognito. And then we are going to have Nitin Gupta, who is the chief executive officer at Lira Softwares. So we would invite them to join on the panel after the third segment on voice of experts. But let's begin with the real world stories, and let me invite Aditi to share her learnings and experience in public sector sales. That's a space where multi-stakeholder negotiation and long cycles define success. So Aditi, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to share the journey of one of the most fulfilling projects of my career. Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, also known as PMJ. This is one of the largest government funded health insurance schemes in the world, aiming to provide healthcare across over 500 million Indians. This project wasn't just about sales or implementation, it was about building trust, navigating challenges, and creating a lasting impact. The challenge, for us as a team who was building the technology platform, Ayushman Bharat required a scalable, efficient digital solution to serve the diverse population that we have with unique needs across 36 states and union territories in India. We had to prove a value proposition early and gain trust and buy-in from all the states that we have, and overcome the resistance to change by aligning complex policy frameworks. How did we get that quick win? So we focused on early success through a pilot rollout in selected states. Within weeks, we streamlined beneficiary verification and claim processing, cutting claim settlements turnaround time by around 70%. This, the turnaround time that we cut by 70%, this sort of built an immediate trust and provided a strong foundation for a nationwide adoption. Once that had happened, once there was that trust that was built, we went to the second stage, which was scaling up. Now scaling the solution nationally came with its own challenges, like policy variations, resistance, political changes, bureaucratic differences, change in people who hold positions, etc., etc. And how did we address them? I think I'm going to talk about it in the next 30 seconds or so. Stakeholder engagement, we did workshops, we trained bureaucratic officials, we trained hospitals, insurers to align with the goals of the program. We did a policy alignment, collaborated with policymakers in each of these states, set up bodies, independent bodies in these states who could, comply and make operational guidelines for the program at the state level and the UT level. Create localized support, hiring and training on ground teams at state level and implementation and support. So for instance, a hospital where initially there were hospitals which were very hesitant to adopt into the system. Once, when we had completed the pilot, there was a district hospital that saw a 50% increase in claim approvals within a month. Once that success story came in the forefront, it kind of spread, a widespread adoption came into the picture after that news kind of went out. There were a lot of learnings during the course of this entire implementation at a national level. However, I think I'm going to just talk some numbers, and it'll be more clearer to the audience as to what exactly I'm talking about. Today, PMJ processes approximate millions of claims monthly, revolutionizing healthcare delivery, proving the power of a digital public good. As on yesterday, 3,645 million e-cards have been issued, 686 million hospital admissions have happened, $10,865 million of claims has been processed. And all of this has happened paperless, absolutely paperless. This journey taught us a lot of things, primarily 4 things. One was that you need to prove your ROI early because quick wins create momentum. Second, you need to adapt and scale. You need to keep adapting. You have to be agile. You have to balance the local needs with the needs of the program. And third is you have to consistently engage with the stakeholders to build those strong relationships. And the last one, which I think is most important in public sector opportunities or public sector transformation programs, is staying persistent. Because when you're persistent is only when you kind of deliver extraordinary results. For me, this was not just a professional achievement. It was a personal milestone. Witnessing a real life impact on millions of people reaffirmed why we do what we do, to solve meaningful problems and make a difference. So, with that, I thank you all for inviting me here and talking about the program. It kind of makes me relive those memories again. I'll be happy to take questions and continue the conversation in the comments. So, thank you. This is where I close.
Thank you, Aditi. Thank you for such a elaborate insights on the experience that you had. And in fact, public sector opportunities are always that complex. You're not only involved with the decision makers, but there are many stakeholders with whom you have to get involved because they are being impacted, and you have to kind of, they are answerable to the decision makers. But what's one strategy you would have used to maintain momentum and trust in these long cycles? Because interacting with the stakeholders, not only the decision makers but also extended stakeholders, takes a lot of time. So how do you keep that persistent? What is the strategy that you followed or your team
I
followed?
think it's very simple, and we all know that strategy. It is building a relationship. It is
Mm,
building a relationship and making sure that you're constantly in touch and they trust you.
yeah,
It could be about little things. Very little things. You could be talking to somebody about how they are doing when you know that yesterday they were not well, or someone in their family had fallen sick and they had not reported to work because we called that state and the person was unavailable. Very basic things. One needs to be human to be persistent. And we are living in the age of AI, but I feel these are the little things that today help us build these relationships. Is why we need humans today also in
yeah.
sales and in all of the other facets that we are working in. So yeah.
No, thank you so much. I think relationships does matter a lot, especially in B2B sales. Let me now invite Manish, who is a business leader turned sales coach. So, Manish, can you walk us through your sales leadership experience in private sector and where deal sizes, change the game, or you were able to use certain nuances, different approaches in terms of deal sizes?
Yeah, thanks, Vish, and thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I was listening to Aditi, and while obviously government sector has big deals, again, when it comes to the corporate sector, private sector, again, there are both big and small deals. And I thought I'll talk about a real life story, a real life scenario, which happened about 5 years back with me.
You're on mute, Manish.
Always talk about whether a quick win is important or a major deal is important, or what's the balance and what to do. And sometimes the normal wisdom is that get in quick and then close big. Let's see what happens here. So this was about 2020 22. That's the time frame I'm talking about. I was leading I was a business leader for a leading edtech SaaS platform where we used to sell to enterprise on that. And just like any startup, we are a startup. The big focus used to be on quick wins because as a startup, you need momentum, you need many deals coming in, you need. So about 20 we for an entire year we were very focused on quick wins, basically getting in quick. And the formula is very simple: identify a small or medium sized organization, find a stakeholder, find one problem, get in quick, try and close things fast, and move on to the next client, because we were building our startup and the idea was to get early clients and early momentum, and the strategy was working fine. The team was fully charged up in capability. And let's cut to 2022, 2021, 22, when we thought we have enough stuff and everybody's going fine. Let's target big deals. The management was very simple that we can close small deals. We have enough experience, and now let's hit big. The moment we started targeting, and the specific case, we were targeting a large gold loan provider. In fact, one of the gold loan provider in the country. And we started with the same approach: quick, find out the problem, get a stakeholder, get in, do the pilot, start doing the thing. And that's when, and obviously it took more time, about 6 to 7 months, and we were towards the negotiation and the closing sort of stage. As we thought things were going fine, in one of the final negotiations that we sat in, we realized that there's a new stakeholder who came in, who we had never even thought of and we'd never even seen, because we were talking with one or two major stakeholders. And that stakeholder not only came in, also brought in a completely different point of view in terms of the solution they were looking at, and added a whole dimension. Like from a learning management system, we started talking about HRMS. And the whole thing was very different than what we were pitching, and our solution was there. And the long story short, the deal never went through. We spent about 8 months of time, energy, effort, projecting all those big numbers, multi-crore numbers that we were talking about, and everything fall flat. I think two or three big lessons that I got from that. One is, yes, the fact that you are very good in quick wins or small deals or so doesn't automatically obviously make you eligible for a big one, because stakeholder mapping, stakeholder management is so much more critical in a complex selling environment. Number two, uh, deals change. What you started off with 8 months back may not remain the same. Requirements change, and the team needs to have that skill, that capability to keep looking at it. And the third
You're you know,
yeah, the management where as also part of was the fact that what are the metrics that you are measuring? The metrics with which you are measuring a large deal cannot be what you are measuring a small deal or a quick win. And I think those were the key learning. And I'll just close with a postscript, which is, I think, a good postscript was, while we got into the systems, we applied these things, and it took another 6 to 8 months for us, but we, I think, made our team more capable, and we started cracking large deals. In fact, we cracked one of the largest banks in the country for our solutions and all. But I think that shift had to be done, both in terms of mindset and skill set. So that's what I will say. I think it's not just about moving from a small to a big, it's about mental shift, skill shift, a system shift in the organization. I think that's what I will say.
thank you, Manish. Thank you so much. The what's that one fear sales team often face in private sector deals, and how do you help them overcome that kind of fear?
I guess where there are many fears. I think one big fear, especially if you're talking about a large deal, is, okay, I'm spending that much time. Am I talking to the right stakeholder? Am I really mapping the account better? And I think the only way to do this is to do it through a structured process. There are systems and ways to do it, and also have the mindset of a marathon player, right? Large deals are not quick runs, not sprints. So be at it consistently. Don't lose the enthusiasm. So there is a mindset part over there, and the skill to do a proper stakeholder mapping, proper requirement analysis, which is what I now coach a lot of people on. But I think that's where organizations need to develop capability if they want their sales teams to start closing major deals.
Thank you. So Nelson, I'll come to you since you are also coach to sales leaders and managers, and what Manish shared. Do you have a different perspective in terms of what are those fears usually the sales leaders and managers have, and how do you kind of help them tackle the two types of deals, whether in terms of a strategy mindset or whether in terms of coaching them over a period of time?
Sure, Vish. First and foremost, I think I would like to congratulate Aditi on such a large program that she was able to fructify and manifest into a beautiful win. And that's a fantastic case study, right? I myself witnessed through TCS, the Passport Seva Kendra program, and hence I understand the complexity that is involved in working on some of these and bringing them home. Um, Also, Manish's example and whatever he mentioned is so spot on in terms of trying to figure out whether you should get into small deals for quick wins or pick the larger ones, because I mean, many people will say that the effort that it takes to work on a small deal is sometimes it is more or less comparable with the kind of effort that you're going to put in a larger deal. But I tell CEOs and VPs of sales that we need to take a step back. Actually, when we think about this entire picture, this scenario, right? I mean, you are in an organization and you have this bunch of salespeople who are responsible and accountable to bring revenue to the company. Now, if you kind of zoom in to the person in the picture is the sales guy. Now, you will have a mix of the young and aspiring and budding salespeople who wanting to kind of make it big in the sales profession. They are very eager. They are hungry. They want to do everything possibly they can to be able to go and make the cut and take the trophy. But there is a need for a little bit of on-field coaching in the context of helping them graduate to a point where they can now start looking a little at the larger deal sizes, right? Now, the big deals are, everyone over here on the panel will agree with me, it's not everybody's cup of tea. There is, and I think Aditi underscored it, and I would like to repeat after her. It is a lot of persistence that is required, a lot of perseverance and determination and grit, and a lot of English words that come to my mind right now. But we have limited time, and so I'm not going to revise everything that I learned from the Ren and Martin here. But it suffices to say that there is a lot that goes into this complex world of sales. And the first camera that I want to move on is on when you're building a case with a organization uh, for a larger deal. Um, you will need to first build a case, which means you will need to know whether they need what you have. You will have to uncover the compelling reasons for them to buy, and then to buy from you. I mean, and remember, there are going to be, Aditi, I don't even want to get started on how many competitors were there in the fray when you first began, right? And I can tell you, I can bet my entire 32 years of sales to say that there would be minimum of 8 to 12 competitors when you first started, and then gradually you would have started seeing them getting eliminated through the rounds, right? But that didn't come so easy. I mean, there was a lot of work that needed to be done, and therefore it would have manifested into building at every state, the 33 states and the union territories that you mentioned, talking to each of those people, bringing everyone to the common ground to believe in what you're saying is the one thing that is going to work at a national level, and it gets complex. Now, the challenge is, Aditi, you won the deal. You went ahead and won the deal, and you brought glory to the organization and to the nation, of course. I mean, because that's one of the very important responsibilities as salespeople we have when we're talking about large public sector deals. But I mean, there could have been a chance. There could have been a chance where you would have gotten dropped out of that list of the final two, correct? And there, the point of the fear of rejection comes into the picture. I mean, and it is a sword that is dangling on every sales guy's head when he is on a large deal, whether it is public or private, doesn't matter. A large deal is a large deal at the end of the day. The contours of that will slightly differ, but it's a large deal, a large deal. Now, the challenge is the kind of time it will take to meet with the decision makers, to convince them, to figure out whether they will pay you what you want for what you're going to service them. Trying to figure out the decision making process and the criteria. And Manish said a very beautiful thing. He says the deal starts with a particular size, form, and shape, and by the time you come somewhere in the middle, everything would have possibly changed about where it all started. And then you have evolved deal construct that you're looking at. Commercial structure constructs would have changed. The timelines would have changed. And so imagine if you have one such deal in your bag which you were depending on to be able to meet your quota, and if that did not come through, then there is this huge capability of suddenly wiping off what is in your funnel. So it's an either you get it or you don't get it. And that quickly brings me to the point of saying you need a plan B deal and a plan C deal in parallel. And so you can't expect a rookie to put him on a large deal and expect that poor chap to work miracles. The person has to shadow a senior person who can guide, coach. And there's a lot of coaching that is required, and most VPs of sales don't have the time to coach. Manish will agree with me on this. They're pretty much left on their own. And I'm sorry to say, I'm one of them, but many a times, uh, sales VPs think that their job is to get into a weekly pipeline call and ask, hey, this is their target, and how much are we tracking towards that number, right? And at baseline selling, we argue that at least 50% of a sales VP's time has to be spent with the team on a deal, trying to see what can be done to win that deal rather than ask that. There is no right to ask the question, hey, have you met your target? The question has to be asked, what have I done to help the team to meet their target, right? So I mean, long story short, I mean, this needs a it's a chapter by itself, and given the mic I can continue like this and
Yeah.
convert it to a 8 hour session. That's what we are all good at. But and I think I the gist of what I'm trying to say is being well understood. I think there's a call for a lot more of this understanding of what we need to equip the teams with, and then put them. I would say the successful mantra is, and one more thing before I go. um, every sales guy needs motivation, and this motivation won't come by sitting with that chap in a coffee shop. This motivation for a sales guy comes when she or he wins something.
Mm.
And so I often tell sales leaders, keep the initial period of the tenure when a person comes into the team, give them some very very soft targets, make them so soft that they can achieve those targets, and those little small gratifications, those little small lovely great feeling of, I brought this deal home. I mean, nothing beats this motivation, and a highly motivated salesperson can do miracles, right?
Yeah. In fact, I
And
have seen teams also use quick wins, transactional deals, more
correct.
for people, sales new joinees, so that
Right.
they get trained on these smaller wins before they are working on a larger win.
Eh,
But I
Yeah.
have that's an interesting point, Nelson. Let
One
me
more
now
thing.
invite. Yeah.
Just one more thing, Vish. The last point. What was that? Okay. Yeah. So the interesting part is, one has to be very very critical about which deal she or he is going to pick and go after.
Mm.
Now, a deal in its initial form might appear to be a very small deal, but a sales guy's job, what is the primary role of a sales guy? To hunt and figure out those tiny small opportunities which have the ability to scale into something very huge. Now, the ability to understand whether something is just going to be a very small revenue generation thread which came in and then landed up right at the bottom as a tail among the list of accounts, and then it becomes an overhead, it becomes a management overhead, a management nightmare to manage all those tail accounts. So, in fact, you're not contributing, you're creating bigger problem for the organization when you create tail accounts. So my advice to everyone is, evaluate every single opportunity very critically. Think that you are paying your own salary, and if you do something that is not going to go in the right direction, stop right there, take a back step, figure out another alternate route. If you think something's going wrong, I mean, you think people are not giving you the time you need to be able to shape up the deal, or people are not answering some of your questions, which are very, very important for you to know, before you can even go ahead, right? And suggest what you are. It's not selling toothpaste.
Yeah.
We are,
I
I
think
think, talking about.
that's a good point. In fact, the tail accounts is a challenge for every organization. If this is in the for the small and mid-sized companies, then it becomes a way big problem to challenge. So let me ask Dean. Dean, what are your insights? You may agree with what Nelson has shared, and in terms of the challenges, misconceptions. So, from a small and mid-size IT seller perspective, what are your thoughts in terms of you know overcoming some of these challenges and misconceptions?
Well, the good news is he reminded me I need some toothpaste. So I do appreciate that. But I think the soft wins, Nelson's right on the mark. I mean, you got to motivate people. And the thing I think most people forget, you're trying to build a predictable, repeatable process, but each person's going to tick and be motivated differently. I mean, some's recognition, some is money. I mean, some is stability. I mean, it goes across. Most people are motivated by multiple things, but I think there's so many low-hanging fruits, and I think that if you can help people get those wins, share those wins, then you get the people within the team working together. You can really ride that motivation and excitement, and I think that's the critical part. But it's amazing. There's some low-hanging fruit that can help you with some of the short-term wins. I mean, when you get into looking at territories as an example. Is the territory set up? Are there accounts that you haven't called on that were prior customers that didn't leave you because they disliked you? Maybe they went with a low price, but you got to really take a look. But one of the biggest misses that I generally see with the smaller companies, and you kind of, it becomes a laughter in the meeting. You ask, do you have a documented sales process? Most people start laughing and they even say, hey, we don't have a sales process. Well, they clearly have a sales process. It may not be documented, may not be repeatable and predictable. But one of the big misses that I see is people either have outdated competitive benchmarking or they haven't really done that. So there are certain spots where your product service, you have an unfair advantage and a competitive advantage. And I think those are the areas that you really have to hone in on. And I know I have a couple clients now that have gone back to prior customers who, again, they didn't do a bad job. They simply left for price. And they're seeing some very quick wins by just simply going back and trying to set up those meetings. So I think, but Nelson has it best. I mean, if you can get each person ticking and motivated, that success is going to breed success across the team. Everybody wants a part of it. And let's face it, whether it's in life or at a customer, if we're excitable and people are seeing that, they want a part of it. So people really want to do business with people who enjoy what they're doing. And whether we like it or not, two things happen. One, our reputation walks through the door before we do. Fair or not fair, it's true. And the other part is people want to buy from people that they can see that are excitable. So I think Nelson's right on the mark with within the team. And I'll tell you, the VP of sales can, because I coach a lot of them, it can be a very lonely role, because the first person that's going to get the call when numbers aren't being achieved, that VP of sales is going to be in what I would call a hot seat, if you will.
Thank you, Dean. So, with that note, let me also invite the two gentlemen that we have, and they have a couple of questions for all of us. So, let me invite Nitil Gupta and Rohit. So, Nitin, Rohit, you may like to share a brief about yourself and then share a question for the panel. Nitin?
Yeah, thank you, Ishu. And it was nice listening the experiences. I'm fairly impressed by Aditi. She really has done a recommendable job. Ayushman Bharat is something where which is see I've been working long time for US healthcare, and recently India has seen a big change and big healthcare opportunities are coming. So I congratulate first Aditi to the achievements and the figures that you have said, specifically when you are mentioning as of today. So you are so aware of day to day figures. Great. Uh, with my experiences with my work which I do is, I remember my first client, he offered me only $3 per hour 11 years back.
Okay.
This client was from Israel, and he said, do you want to negotiate? I said, I'm okay with this, because that was my first client. My expectation, which was anything, is okay. I started with $3 per hour, and this client was working with me for 2.5 years. And he asked me after 2 years, do you want to revise? Are you okay with this? I said, no, we Indians respect our first customer. I want you to pay me this much throughout maybe 3 years or 30 years. With any other client, I am going to take higher, but from you specifically, I will take this only.
Hmm.
And this is how I build my organization. For any big deal, you always have to start with the smaller ones. And I think I'm not a very big company, I'm a very small company. My question from Dennis and Dean is, like, okay, as a tech entrepreneur, I tell you, I'm a very good salesperson. When I start talking to my customer, I have to first showcase my work. I have to tell them what I have already done. I give them my portfolio. But I don't really find many platform where I get uh, frequent interaction with the new leads. I've been a part of LinkedIn. I have taken a premium subscription of LinkedIn, and I've hardly found new leads on LinkedIn. I myself personally has tried a lot, but to be very frank, my premium subscription on LinkedIn was a waste.
That's a
I don't know
challenge
why.
everyone shares, especially while they're in sales domain. But yeah,
My bad.
me,
Maybe my effort was not up to the mark. I don't know if I would have tried some differently. But my question is, where do we really get the leads? Like, how do I how do I find new leads? Like, let's say if I go to the marketplace like Freelancer or Upwork, I see a big competition, and there I can see it's a big competition there. Small value client there, you don't find the big deals there. People are not so I can say reliable at times, not trustworthy at times. You have to really hunt for that. So my question from Dennis and Dean and you guys are, how do I approach for this?
You want me to take it first?
Yeah, go right ahead, Dan.
It's a Yeah, it's a great question. I can tell you my personal experience. I've
Mhm.
almost found LinkedIn as a means to educate my trusted advisors and people that can hopefully help me get to those business owners or decision makers. Um,
Mhm.
not to say you can't leverage LinkedIn ads, not to say you can't be more focused, but if you're not, if your messages aren't hitting the streams of those decision makers, um, that's gonna, it's not gonna resonate. But there's also a large trend where I know in the world I'm in, there's a lot of business owners that are either not active or they're not in LinkedIn anymore. So
Mhm.
what I find is outside of my trusted advisors, I would recommend you find a way to get in the room. And what I mean by that is what kind of seminars, workshops, what can you do to get in the groups where your customers are going to be? So, like in my world, I spend a lot of time building sales around exit strategy and planners, M&A, PE. So, I need to be in workshops like with Aprio, with the attorneys when they're doing planning. And by the way, it's great if you can present. It's also really good if you're in the room because one, you can't screw up a presentation, but two, you're going to be able to have conversations at breaks or in the room. You'll have
Mhm.
questions over. So I think putting yourself in the room in the moment, and that's what
Mhm.
I try to do as much as I can. And
Mhm.
because otherwise, I don't feel like I'm in control of my own pipeline and driving the
Mhm.
business. So
Mhm.
I think of leveraging both mediums. And the other part is talking. What I've learned the hard way is talk about the problems. I don't even
Mhm.
talk about what I do generally. It's all right. I know people are struggling with no documented sales process. They're
Mhm.
struggling with territories, CRMs. They
Mhm.
may or may not have them, may or not be using them. They're spreadsheet managing suspect, prospect, pipeline, forecast. They don't have an onboarding plan for reps. I've got a
Mhm.
couple of clients where they're growing. They've never had to worry about onboarding where they have multiple people now. So it's a new dynamic, but it's a good news scenario. They're growing. So I think anything you can do to focus on that part. And, it's not always easy to do. I think it's easier said than done, but that would at least be my perspective is trying to understand how to work both ends of the spectrum. And hopefully you're generating opportunities from trusted advisors and directly yourself from your own actions.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank
Dean.
you.
A
I
great
just like
question.
to just
Let
like to
me
add
let
point
me
here.
also Rohit might have some questions as well, Nelson. So let me also
Sure.
invite Rohit, and then we can, you know, uh, share our responses. Rohit.
Sure. So thanks, Vishwendra. And yeah, I think it's a fantastic, I think, insights into the whole sales sort of really ecosystem. My name is Rohit. I handle sales for a B2B startup, which is in the infrastructure space for mining and construction called Cognito. And I think a lot of things which were mentioned, I think definitely resonate with me. We typically have a large sales cycle, which is 6 to 9 months. We also have a lot of multiple sales sort of stakeholders, which at times change during the whole journey. So sort of really at times you're back to square one after 3 or 4 months because one of your stakeholders etc has changed. So I think I appreciate, I think, a lot of the feedback, the some of the points that were made around how do you engage with stakeholders, being persistent, the stakeholder with regards to Manish around stakeholder mapping. Are we talking to the right stakeholders? I think Nelson spoke about how you manage the young and the experienced sales force, etc. So I had actually two questions ready. Uh, we've seen the evolution of within our own startup. So earlier I was driving it. Now we have a sales team which sort of drives it. So one of the interesting things that we've sort of realized is as the team has grown, they have tended to become a little more territorial and a little more competitive with regards to each other. So, I mean, a fair example being, if you at times you ask some sales guy to sort of work on a contract for some other customer, he'll be like, okay, that's not my job. It's some XYZ salesperson is already handling it. So, how do you sort of really evolve your juniors to sort of really make sure that they are sort of still collaborative? That's number one. Number two, I think was a point I think being made by Nelson around giving these people a soft sales target. Absolutely agree to that. Having said that, we also tried one more approach which I think worked fantastically well. We also gave them some of the contracts or asked them to work on some of the sales, which frankly we was pretty sure we're not gonna get it because the stakeholder was out of the reach. He wouldn't talk to us. And these young sales guys, they just literally walked into the extremely senior stakeholders' offices, made their presentation, made their cases, and frankly, I think we have a success rate of 30 to 40%, which is much better than 0% than we would have had. So I think I would also want to, I think, really sort of talk about how do you sort of really groom some of these young sales folks, but more importantly, would love to hear your inputs around how do you ensure that the sales team is still embedded within the organization of us rather than I. That was my question.
I
Is
see
your
Nelson is
your
smiling.
salespeople, what
I'm waiting.
generation are they?
I'm waiting.
Are they Gen Y, Z, or
Sorry, yeah, the Gen Z. I mean,
okay?
the latest one.
Yeah, because and I know what I'm seeing with my clients and prospects. There's a lot of everybody talks about exit planning and the owners that are baby boomers selling, transition to family, ESOP. What no one's talking about, for every owner retiring, there's three sales professionals that are retiring, relocating for family. So when you go from a baby boomer to a Gen Y, Gen Z, unfortunately, you're going to have to take a close look at your culture because there's going to be a lot of onboarding, a lot of education, a lot of hand holding. But really, you almost have to get your culture aligned to the new generations because otherwise, um, they're not going to be selling like some of the more experienced, tenured people. But unfortunately, you're going to struggle to retain them in your culture if it doesn't align with their values. I mean, that's a real big issue, I know, in the US right now.
Nelson, you want
Sure.
to?
I am still tempted to uh, finish what I wanted to say to Nitil. And Nitil, I'll
Yeah.
be now a little relieved that I got the opportunity to say that. Contrary to what you have been experiencing in terms of not being able to leverage LinkedIn to get good leads, I would share something completely converse. I mean, all my business comes only from one channel, that's LinkedIn.
Ah.
I
Wow.
don't do marketing,
Okay.
don't do email blasts to thousand people
Oh.
and pray. And
Mm-hmm.
I will talk to you separately offline and I will share what you are missing. And probably the next time you get on that seat on this forum, you will be proud to say how that changed your entire business.
Ah.
And we'll come back to that. And Rohit, I think there's a lot of work that you need to do with your sales team, Gen Zs and Y. To my mind, it doesn't matter really because sales and selling was the same 50 years ago, and selling is going to probably continue to be uh, the same 50 years later. What one needs to understand is the art, the science, the psychology, the neuroscience behind what really. And I was very happy to hear when you said some of these guys just kind of went in and landed up, and then they kind of excited the customer, and I kind of quickly switch to Nitil's room and say, Nitil, when you do some of these emails to your clients, probably there are some 50 other people in a similar business who are also shooting them emails and trying to do an outreach to them, and so you are one among the 50. There's no reason for them to connect with you, right?
Hmm.
So we need to figure the methodology of how do we get there. Right now, coming back to Rohit, I think it is important to get your sales team trained professionally. Unfortunately, there is no sales academy which gives you a graduation certificate where actually sales and marketing is not as easy as it appears to be from the distance. It is one of the most complex responsibilities on the planet, if you ask me. More complex than accounting, or more complex than reconciliation and record to report, or whatever it may be in financial terms, or even whatever you might want to compare with, right? Selling needs 21 selling competencies to be present in the soul of the person who is the salesperson. Did you know that? I'm sure you did not. Uh, every salesperson everybody in my mind is a salesperson, by the way. The designation of the title, which says sales director or regional sales manager, doesn't make him a salesperson and the other person any lesser of a salesperson. Anyone who interacts with the customer and positions what is in it for the customer, when I go and pitch this to the customer, that person for me is sales. Now, one needs to understand, you can't be going into a customer and the customer says, "Hey, show me what you got," and then boom, boom, boom. Oh, this is one of the biggest traps that I see. And the customer does it unintentionally, right? Uh, and what do? The sales guy opens his laptop. He's got a very jazzy 600 slide presentation, and he's just waiting to kind of shoot and take the clicker and then move slide 2, slide 3, slide 10, slide 13. I mean, what are you really doing? You are wasting your time, but more importantly, you are wasting the customer's time as well. So the customer gets to know everything about what you have in your presentation, but you never will get the opportunity to understand what is that guy's problem. And so, if you don't know what is that guy's problem, what on earth are you really going to figure out and pitch as, this is my proposition which will fix this problem? And what happens is, most of the times, you end up with the customer listening to the presentation, offering you the cookies and the coffee, and all of that happens in a very ceremonious manner. And after that, they say, "We will get back to you." And the next time the guy calls, he says, "Hey, we have still not decided, we'll get back to you." And again, 2 weeks later, "Hey, can you not call us? I mean, we will call you when we think we are ready." So I mean, and you just reflect on what I said, it's practically true every time you went in completely blind. And that's where the stock doc, Dennis Roman's magic comes to life, right? You
Thank you, Nelson. Yeah.
go with the numbers, you go
I,
with the financial earning reports, and what exactly you see are the trends that particular organization is kind of demonstrating in the open, in public. It's a public report, and that's why I love what Dennis does. It enables salespeople and armors them, it equips them with what you really need to be able to go and fly in the customer's zone. Thank you very
Nelson,
much.
I just got a reminder from Ritika, a time check. We have crossed our timing. So I just quickly ask Manish to,
Can you make this
Manish
an
had
8 hour
some,
session? Can
yeah,
you make
we
this an
should
eight
have
hour
done. In fact, yeah, with you, of course, we should be doing 8 hour session. Let me ask Manish because he had some point, and quickly, Manish, if you want to address some of the questions of Rohit, and then I'll quickly go to Aditi, to Dennis, and then Aditi.
Sure. Just a couple of points. I was listening to everybody. I think one, on Nitter's point, I agree with Nelson. I believe LinkedIn. My experience also has been that LinkedIn is great. It's how you use, how you do. Very simple 2 points on that. If you look at LinkedIn only for like expecting that a deacon will come to somebody and ask for it, that may not be the best way to use it. You build authority, and this is a thing you need. I think a lot can be done. The second thing is in terms of Rohit's point. I just had one lighter note and one on a serious note. On a lighter note, I say if the sales guys are not talking about territory, then there is a problem with the sales guy. sales guys are by nature territorial. Everybody, they would not like everybody to know. That's the coon in the sales guy. So that's one on a lighter note. But I think if you want to have more collaboration in the team, then I think the only one thing, the most critical thing would be, what are you measuring? If you measure, if you measure on collaboration, then you will see collaboration happen. If you measure only on the outcome and the result, then maybe collaboration is not going to happen, because again, sales guys are very number driven. They have the unique ability to figure out what they are being measured on. Nobody is in charity in sales. I think Mother Teresa and others don't do selling. Sales guys are not charitable, by the way. All of us are sales people, but I will say that sales guys need their pound of flesh. So we need to give them their pound of flesh even in charity. So that's basically my two quick points around that, and maybe need to look at how you are incentivizing them. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish.
Thanks.
Dennis?
I could go on, and I'm not going to do that. This has been very stimulating. Just to tie in something Nelson said also about LinkedIn that I would contribute. I had to perfect my LinkedIn skills dramatically, so that I was finding out what specifically I should be saying to each individual that I was trying to make contact with. LinkedIn's great for me to build up my network with professionals. People seem very eager to connect with me, and I have a large network. But LinkedIn is especially populated with sellers as opposed to buyers. It's just the nature of the beast. So LinkedIn can be very effective if you can predispose yourself to know what the person would be interested in before you reach out to them, which runs contrary to the large numbers that we often use when we're going into the market. Email would come in second. In first place would be the telephone. The telephone has practically become a lost art. And that would be my guidance. Try to get people on the phone, but it all starts with, why would this person want to talk to me? And the way to do that, in my world, is to look at their economic situation, their financial situation, and determine what might be the hot buttons over there. Thanks, Vish.
Thank you, Dennis. Aditi, I understand you also have one more question that is that Nitil has shared.
So do I
But
take
yes,
that question, or I have something to add to Nitil's existing question?
sure,
Which one do
sure.
you want me to?
Your whichever.
When he was talking about that he's not able to generate leads and there's a dearth over there. One quick point there is that we can always look up to partnerships with other organizations which are already generating leads and doing business. We may get a smaller chunk of the pie, but at least we are getting some chunk of the pie. These strategic partnerships with larger or mid-sized similar organizations can actually kind of help you build a business in the future. So that is one that I wanted to add. And the question that Nitil had for me is that he's a proprietor, that theirs is a proprietorship firm, and how do a firm like theirs get involved in the public sector and become a part of the project which enjoy their services. So quite a few things that come out here is, one, that we need to figure out what your niche is primarily. And there are a lot of compliances that come with working with the government. There are a lot of processes. So there are platforms. I can go on, and this can be a 30-minute, 40-minute session in itself. But if I have to just quickly sum it up, uh, to be part of that government procurement process, first what we need to do is that complete our compliances parallel as an organization, because adherence to legal, financial, technical standards of at least first qualifying to being able to bid or being able to participate in a request for proposal, that is first. Till the time you won't be able to participate, you may not even get into an opportunity to get an opportunity. So one is that I can help you understand those compliances. I can also help you understand the technicalities of getting those compliances for your organization. Very simple things like Make in India. Other things like whatever solutions or services that your organization is providing, the data that that is being stored has to be in Indian geographical boundaries. So we need to look at some technicalities of these sort. Third is that we network and we get into advocacy. We network with we get into public sector summits, we get into other enterprise level summits. But since we my question was targeted to public sector, this is what we can do. Third, and the most important for me, is partnerships. Partnerships and collaboration with large size organizations that today grab such RFPs from the government and are working on an existing project with the government. As part of that large chunk that they pick up, yours can be a smaller chunk that can be, you can be part of that SVP that is created. So a lot of such points are there, which we can take up separately. But overall, there are these certain checks that we can do to help your organization get business in the public sector.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Aditi.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditi. So, quickly summarizing all the discussion that we had today, I just have a slide that I'm going to show. It's more on a deal nurturing framework for a small and large deals. So, when definition is the one of the critical point when how you define the small deals for quick wins and large deals, as I heard and that we discussed. But I also heard somewhere that large deals are actually formed in the minds of not buyers, but in the minds of sellers. So it's very important that how you align yourself with the client goals and do multi-stakeholder mapping. So this definition is very important, and then you engage. So there's a couple of questions that we had, especially in terms of how to engage. There are a couple of areas that you can focus on, especially for small deals. It could be high impact, personalized outreach, or leverage digital channels, which is what a lot of small and mid-sized companies are doing. For large deals, there's deep relationship building and regular stakeholder alignment. That's important. In terms of the next step, which is accelerate. So while once you have engaged, now you simplify the buying process, use automation and incentives. That is very critical if you want to accelerate your sales. And for from the large deals perspective, break into pilot phases. So I think we talked about pilots that they have done. Manish also talked about pilots. So use win rooms for collaboration. So there are stakeholders which are not only involved from the public, from the buyer side, but also from your side. So you need to have a win room that has been designed and you can collaborate for the acceleration. And last is the leverage. So small deals can actually leverage their existing relationship to upsell and cross-sell opportunities, build loyalty through feedback loops, and large deals expand use cases, position as a trusted partner or advisor that has been also discussed here. So that's in a nutshell about it's more of a conclusion on the discussion that we had. Since we already reached crossed the time that we have put, any last thoughts? Otherwise, we'll just close the session. In fact, I have one more point which I want to share here. Our next session is actually coming on 13th of Feb, and this next session is on founder-led versus expert-led sales, breaking barriers to rapid growth. So some of the questions that we had in this session today, we might actually address some of the questions in the next session, wherein the founder-led versus expert-led sales. Rohit actually mentioned about this in his question. So some of these questions we would be actually covering in our next session, which is scheduled on 13th of Feb. So more details are going to be shared soon. But yeah, thank you so much for joining today. Last insights or inputs from the panel that we have here.
Hey, the only thing to add, Vish, if you once you have fixed and repaired on the sales process, and you've got everything sustainable, and to me that means it's got to be repeatable and predictable. I think, and maybe next time we have a little more time to talk to it, but I think building out that playbook with the blueprint, kind of akin to what EOS does holistically with the VTO, that's what I do on the sales side. And I think that playbook, that's really getting that snapshot and helping you prepare for that next run of, say, 5 years plus. I think that would be really good as well, because, especially with the generational gaps and changing onboarding, trying to get those new people productive and up and producing. It's going to continue to be one of the, I think, hot topics and biggest challenges that we all will face.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you so much. Dennis, do you have any points to end with since we set the context?
So 2025 is going to be a year of a lot of change. There's great political movement and great economic movement across all countries going on right now. And at times of change, there's opportunities to appropriately exploit those to our advantage. So this isn't going to be a quiet year. It's going to be positively volatile, right? So it'll be volatility, but it'll be positive. So keep at it, keep the faith. The future's friendly, I can assure you. I've seen the future, and I can assure you it's going to be a great year in 2025. And I hope all of us, our audience and our panelists and our speakers, just have a great year this year. Thanks, Vish.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And a big thank you to all the speakers for their incredible insights. Take what you have learned today and implement it into your strategy. And but don't forget to share your thoughts on LinkedIn with 2020X Vision series. See you next time. Till then, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.